Begin the current Daf Mesech Taanis Daf. We begin 10 lines up at the bottom of the Amid on the Testament base, where we continue the discussion from the previous Daf regarding rain, also introducing a fascinating story with Diman Ben Gurion. Joining us for today's Daf. Something that is discussed in today's Daf are the story with Diman Ben Gurion regarding davening for rain and getting rain, too little and too much rain, and both being a curse for a city. Yehuda learning something positive from Sukkim that seemed to describe something negative. How a reed is better than a cedar, and the merits of Rav Ba'ava, and Rav Huna. Some of the key terms that comes discussed in today's Daf are Nida, menstruating woman who is tummy for 7 days, then goes to the mikveh and purifies herself. A person should not stand in or go into a dangerous situation. So you're meant to say, that they can do a miracle for me. Maybe they're not going to do a miracle for him, and even if they do, it takes away from his merits. So we begin the current Daf on the Daf Chav on the bottom of your test of a base, 10 lines up at the bottom of the oven. The Gemara brings Torah. The Gemara brings a fascinating story. One time it happened that all the Jewish people went up to Yerushalayim for the Yom Tov. So many people coming to do Aliyah Regal didn't have water to drink. So Nagdim Ben Gurion. So Nagdim Ben Gurion was a very wealthy person. He went Eitzel Adin Echad, or Hegmoin Echad. He went to one governor, a nobleman, and Amar Allah, he said to him, Halveini Shteim Esri Mayonis Mayim L'Ilrigo. Lend me 12 springs, which obviously weren't like regular springs, but lend me 12 springs for the Ilrigo. But Nietem L'Chol Shteim Esri Mayonis Mayim, and I'm going to give you back 12 springs of water, meaning that it will rain and it will fill up the springs of water. Like Rashi says, those springs weren't, a spring generally has its flow from underwater, but here it obviously didn't fill up so much like other springs. They said, look, give us to drink and it'll rain and I'll fill it up. And if I don't pay back the water to you, I'm going to give you 12 talents of silver, that's a lot of money. A couple days month, and he set a date for him. He says, if I don't pay back the water by then you'll get the money. Once the time already came and it didn't rain, so b'shachris in the morning, shalach loi, so the minister sent to Nagdim Ben Gurion, shagali oimai my moish she'esh le'be'otcha. Pay back. Today's the date. Either that water or the money that you have, that I have by you. So shalach loi sent him. Adan yishlizman. Still have time. Call him kulei shalayim. The whole day is mine. The date is not over yet. Tzarayim shalach in the afternoon he sent him, shagali oimai my moish she'esh le'be'otcha. Send me the water or the money that I have by you. Shalach he sent him. Adan yishlizman bayan. I still have time during the day. In the evening he sends him, meaning in the late afternoon. Shagali, send me either the water or the money that I have by you. He sent him I still have time of the day. Chala, take it easy. So this minister was scorning him, mocking him. Omar says, the whole year it didn't rain. As you can see, and now it's going to rain. So, as the Bach has the word miyad, right away, nichnas l'beis hamerches v'simcha, this minister very happily is going into the bathhouse. He knows he's going to get a lot of money now for this water that we're going to pay back. Now, the nichnas b'simchas l'beis hamerches, all the while this minister is going into the bathhouse joyously, like Nima nachnas l'beis hamikdash kushu atzik. So, like Nima went into the beis hamikdash when he's sad and depressed. He cloaks himself and he stands and he davens the namal and they send him to Rabbi Shloimy. Rabbi Shloimy, master of the world. It's well known and revealed in front of you. I did not do this in my honor. I didn't do it in the honor of my father's household. I did this when I got the water. I did it for your honor. That there should be water found for those who come up to make pilgrimages to you, to your Beis Hamikdash. So immediately the heavens got knotted with clouds, and it rained until they filled up these 12 springs of water, and there was even leftover. By the time this minister came out of the bathhouse, Nagdim Ben Gurion notes a Beis Hamikdash. He was coming out of the Beis Hamikdash. When they met each other, Amalei said to him, Nagdim said to him, give me, I paid you back too much. Give me the money, the value of the money that I gave you more than the 12 wells of water. Amalei said to him, look, you did, and he says, I know. That God did not turn over the world. He didn't make this whole rash of making it rain. I know he did it only because of you. And I get that. But I still have what to say against you. It's my side that I'm going to go and collect my money from you. The son already said. And the rain actually came down in my possession because you already were already after the date. So Chazor next is Beis HaMikdash. So like he went back into the Beis HaMikdash. Again he clothed himself and he stood to daven. In front of Hashem, the master of the world. Let it be known that you have lovers, you have friends in this world. So immediately the clouds dispersed, and the sun was shining. And at that moment the minister said to him, and this is where he gets his name from. Had it not been that the sun pierced through, I would have what to say against you. That I could collect my money from you, but obviously now that the sun is shining, obviously God has shown that it's still the daytime, and he didn't have to pay back these talents of silver. Now Tana learned the Brayso, his name wasn't really Nakdimon, Alabuni Shemai. His name was Muni. But Nakdimon, the word Nakdimon has in it, the Nakdimon is the Naktara that appears, and the Mem is like from the Mem of Chama. That the sun was shining, like a term of piercing through, it was piercing through the sky and shining because of him. That's where he got his name of Nakdimon. And that's again the story related to davening for rain, which is the theme of our Masechta. In the Brayso, continue on this. There's 3 individuals that the sun went to the east because of them, meaning it stayed shining. It goes from east to west, the sun. West means it's setting. There are 3 that it went to the east for them. Moshe, Yeshua, and Nakim and Begorian. So the Gemara says, Bishlam and Begorian, we know that's a Gemara, that's a tradition. And we know that happened, that the sun went to the east for him to stay shining. Yeshua, now Mikra. It says a pasuk in Yeshua. It says, V'yidem Hashemesh. The sun was silent. V'yirech Amad. And the moon was standing, etc. The pasuk there says that the sun stood b'chatze hashemayim. It stayed like in the middle of the sky, but it didn't move like as it would on a regular day. So we see that is also the case by Yeshua. But no, what do we know by Moshe that the sun stayed and didn't set? So Rabbi Shloimy says we know from Gzeir Shabbat of Asya Achil Achil. Achil means I'm going to begin. We have a Gzeir Shabbat. Gzeir Achil says I'll begin Devarim Achil Teis Pachtecha, that I'll begin to give your fear. Ksiv Hassam, it says over there, and that's talking about for Moshe Rabbeinu, that I'm going to give your fear in front of the nations, they're going to hear about you. And Ksiv Hassam says over there, pasuk in Yeshua, Achil Gadelcha, I'm going to begin making you great, which it says over there by the Muhammad of Yeshua, Achil Gadelcha, and it says by Moshe, by his Muhammad, Achil Tes Pachtecha. So just like Yeshua, we see that by his war, the sun stayed to the east, like it says explicitly in the pasuk. So to Moshe, where that's the way the psukim normally are, that they learn out what's unspecified from that which is explicit, by alluding to where it says the same terminology, which that's Gzeir Shabbat. It's one of the 13 midrash that was given to Moshe by Sinai, and that's what's being alluded to when it says the word Achil, to tell you that both of them had this miracle by their wars, that the sun stayed in the east and didn't set in the west. Or another source from Shmuel ben Nachmenu says Asya taste from a different word, the word taste put. Which is the same pasuk said by Moshe, Achel Teis Pachtecha, I'm going to begin to place your fear amongst the nations. Ksiv Hassam says over there in Yeshua, V'yom Teis Hashem es Amori, and the day that Hashem gives the Amori over to the Jewish people. So we see just like over there that Yeshua had this miracle of the sun, so too the same thing was by Moshe Rabbeinu. A third source, Rabbi Yechidam, says actually go for the crowd. We actually learn that from the psukim itself by Moshe and Devar, that Hashem says that what does it mean? I'm going to start giving your pachad, and it says over there, they're going to hear your hearing, and they're going to tremble, and they're going to be afraid from you. which is the Amos said, when are they going to tremble and be afraid from you? And when the sun stood to the east, they say, wow, he controls the constellations, the planets, and those are three different sources how we know that by Moshe, Yeshua is a pasuk, and the Magurian is a Gemara, like we brought, that they had these things. Now we continue with the halacha of the Mishnah that said, regarding those things that we scream about, we said, we said that if, let's say, there's a city that it didn't rain, so there also, we're going to have this halacha of, but we said that it's one city that did rain, one city that didn't rain, where we said that it's going on the pasuk that the Mishnah brought. Pasuk brought the Mishnah brought the pasuk al irachas amtev al irachas lo amtev. I'm going to rain on one city I'm not going to rain. So Rabbi Yehuda Merav, he says v'shtein leklol. Both of these cities have a curse. The one that rained, it rained too much, that it destroyed the grain. The one that didn't rain, so there's no rain, so the grain's not growing. And therefore, that's why they're masriyan. The Gemara brings a pasuk in Eicha, because it's another teaching from Rabbi Yehuda Merav. Yerushalayim was like a menstruating a woman amongst the nations of the world. Somebody with the Rav, and this starts a whole list of things that Rabbi Yehuda is going to say that are seemingly curses, but he shows the bracha inside of these things. And again, it's related to Rabbi Yehuda Rav, and also because he was talking about Shtein L'Klala, where he said that pasuk that we brought in our Mishnah, both are curses. He's going to show that what seemingly is a curse is actually a blessing. How is this lebracha? It's kenida. You say Yerushalayim is like a nida. A nida is a curse because she's set aside. Galmuda, she can't be intimate with her husband. But ma nida yishla had to, just like a menstruating woman has permissibility after 7 days. She goes to the mikveh and she's intimate with her husband, actually more intimate than she was possibly for in a while. After Yerushalayim yishla takana. So although it's cursing, saying that like a nida, like a scorned woman, but to the contrary, it's actually showing that yes, there is a remedy and will actually bring greater intimacy. Another pasuk in Eicha, Kalmana, that she's like a widow. Rabbi Yehuda again, he says lebracha. There's a secret blessing here when you read the psukim. Actually, I believe it's I don't remember, it was the Ben Ish Chai, one of the Sfad Shagayin writes a whole pirush on Eicha, showing how it's all bracha. It's not like the way we read the Eicha. It's all telling you brachas. And that's the Kayach Rabbi Yehuda showing. You read the psukim finally, he says it's kiyaman, it's like a widow. But it's not saying that she's literally a widow. Meaning, it's like a woman that her husband went overseas, and she's like as if a living widow for her husband had left, but his intention is to come back. So that's the same thing. She's not literally a widow. That's how the Jewish people are after the Churban Beis Hamikdash. A pasuk in Malachi says, and I also placed you disgraced and humbled. Which here also Rabbi Yehuda says lebracha. This also is a blessing that Hashem made us like this l'chol ha'am, by all the people. How so? Since we're considered despised by the nations of the world, they don't make us like these officers that are toll collectors because it's a disgrace. And neither do they make us like a soldier. So because of that, we get away from all these different types of positions because we're nibzim u'shvalim. And again, that's a blessing. So too, he brings a pasuk in Malachim Aleph. V'hika Hashem es Yisrael, and Hashem will hit the Jewish people kasher yomer hakana b'mayim, the way the reeds get hit in the water, which they're out and exposed, and the reeds fly all around the place. So this is, so to speak, a curse. Remember the Rav, he says no, the bracha is a blessing. You know why? Kedamar Shmuel ben Nechemia Rabbi Anderson says, "My Daf said wasn't in a pasuk in Mishlei. It says nemanim pitzei oyev. The wounds of the lover is faithful. V'netaris, which Rashi and Tosafos both bring, that netaris is like a fork, a pitchfork. It means to turn things over. As the Gemara says in Sukkah, v'ya'asaloi, that tzaddikim, their tefillos are like a pitchfork, which takes things from midas adin to midas arachamim. So it would mean that the opposite is neshika soinek, that the kisses of an enemy is the exact opposite. That when a beloved hits you, that's trustworthy. The opposite is by the kisses of the enemy. or Rashi and Taisus both bring that Netaris could also mean the terminology of ribui and excess, like hatartim alay devrechem, which is like, but the kisses of an enemy is like timat teva. It's like it's too burdening. Which Taisus says that what would that mean if you say the interpretation of Netaris as a lashon hipuch? He says, interesting. He says that pitzi oyev nemanim is that even if a friend, parents usually say this, although I don't know if they really always do it in that way, but they say that we're giving you this patch because we care about you. And the real friend, if he's going to hit you, is that it's nemanim, it's trustworthy, it's something that's good. But when an enemy kisses you, it's like when Lavan's coming to kiss or Esav or whatever, it's like it's the opposite. Everything is for the bad. But on the if you say the other pshat in Rashi, that means a lashon of ribui. In other words, that when the enemy kisses is like a load because it's too much. It's not something that you appreciate. A third pshat Taisus brings is that when friends fight and they hate each other, that's neman pitzi ayev, is that's really trustworthy, meaning to say that that's going to be a gezum to fight. It sounds like from Taisus. But when netaris nashika signing, when enemies make peace amongst each other, that peace and compromise between them is so trustworthy that that's going to be something that's incredible. So the exact opposite is by the enemy when they make. So when friends fight, it's really like a fight. They'll do who knows what. And the opposite is true by an enemy. Those kisses when they make up is exactly the opposite. But be that as it may, what does this pasuk mean in Mishlei? So says the Gemara, Taiva Klola Shekilel Achia Shalon Yas Yisrael. Greater is the curse that Achia Shalon cursed the Jewish people, meaning it's a better thing. Yisim Bracha Shabirchen Belam Rasha, which is the same idea that when the enemy's kissing, you think it's a kiss, but when the friend hits you, is better off than the curse, than the blessing of the wicked Bilam, as the Gemara explains. Achia Shaloni Kilan Bekana. Achia Shaloni cursed the Jewish people as a reed. Amalam Yisrael, as we quoted the pasuk. V'hikashem es Yisrael is going to hit the Jewish people. Kashayom Akana, like the reed shakes. Now, Makon Azel Mibamamayim, just like this reed, it stands in the place of water. The Gizay Machlef, and the stalk regenerates. And so if it breaks off, it comes back. B'Sharashim Merubin, it also has a lot of roots. And like us Jewish people, we have a lot of roots. And even if all the winds of the world come and blow it, it doesn't remove it from its place. And it goes and comes with the wind. But when the wind stops, the reed is still in its place. So yeah, it's going to get hit and flying with all the wind or whatever, but it's going to stay. But the wicked Bilam, he blessed the Jewish people with a cedar. Shemai says the pasuk in Bamidbar. It says ka'arazim, like the pasuk says ka'arazim ali mayim, like cedars on water. Now Rashi and Taisus both address, even though the pasuk says like cedars on water, which seems to say it's like reeds which also grow in water. That wasn't Bilam who said that. Bilam said like cedars. The Malach responded ali mayim, and all the things that Bilam said when he said kinachalim, like streams which sometimes dry up. The Malach said nutayu, which they're flowing, which they never dry up. And that's what the pasuk says. Hashem says, through the Malach, that the Malach responded. Whatever he said, the Malach answered something to ameliorate that, to fix that. But Bilam blessed them with a cedar. But if you bless them, cedars are a mighty thing. But it's not in a place of water. And the trunk does not regenerate. If it gets chopped down, it remains chopped down. It does not have a lot of roots. And yes, even if all the winds in the world that are not so harsh, they blow on it, it looks like it's a great thing. A cedar, it doesn't budge from its place. The problem is, but once the southern wind, which is very harsh, like the Gemara says about if not for this Malach ben Netz that would stand in the way, no creature could stand in front of it. Once that wind blows, it tears it up, this cedar, and it smashes it on its face. And therefore, we see that the hit of the friend is better than the kiss of the enemy, where the curse of Achia Shaloni is better than the blessing of Bilam Harasha. Now, but not only that, another thing is is that also the reed merited that we make the pen, we make the forget the word, is the quill. We make the quill out of a kana. To write the Sefer Tanakh from this kana. So again, that's another thing that we see that's special about the kana. One is that it goes with the winds, and although it gets hit, but it's going to remain. And also we use it to write the Sefer Torah. Related to this idea, the term of the Brisa, a person should always be soft like a reed, and should not be hard like a cedar. Which, because of that great midah that the reed has, that even though it seems like it's going through a tough time, it's going to last. But the cedar makes himself steif, but then he gets knocked down, he can't get up again. Now the Gemara brings Meister Shabbat Rabbi Elazar ben Reb Shimon Migdal Gedar. He's coming from Migdal Gedar, Beis Rabbi, from his master's house. And he was riding on a donkey. And he was strolling and was very happy. Maral makes this into very important lessons, but even in the simple understanding, he says he was strolling on the edge of the river, and he was very happy. And he was had some arrogance because he learned a lot of Torah. Now to continue to Beis, he encountered someone that was very ugly, which Rashi says both bring that some Svarim bring that this is Eliyahu Zachalatayv, and his intention was to rebuke him that he shouldn't be accustomed to this. So Eliyahu, did a trial run with him that he should realize that this is not a proper attitude for a Talmid Chacham. So Amalai, Eliyahu Navi said to him, Shalom Aleichem Rabbi, peace be on you, my teacher. And he didn't respond to him. Rather, Amalai, he said to him, who was Eliyahu, dressed up as a ugly person, he says, Reika, empty one. Kama Bukuro, I say, how ugly is this person? Maybe all the people in your city are as ugly as you are. So he said to him, I don't know. But you can go ahead and tell the craftsman that made me, how ugly is this vessel that you made, which is a very important concept, obviously, for self-esteem, self-confidence, that when people don't appreciate who you are, just understand that who's the craftsman that made you. I always said if someone would have Chanel or Louis Vuitton coming out of your neck, right? And someone would say, you would say, do you know who made me, right? Havdil El Avdal, the bunch of major and says it's so ugly. Say, you know art? You walk into MoMA and the guy says, this is disgusting. Let's get out of here. He says, Meshuggah, what do you know already, right? You know who made this? The guy spits on the thing. It cost $13 million, right? And you don't know anything, right? So that's the same thing. The Rebbeinu Shalom made a person. He says you're so ugly. You have people walking around that they want to commit suicide because they feel they're so ugly, and they just don't have a comprehension of who it is that made them. Now, once he realized that he sinned, he made a mistake. Obviously said an off-colored comment. So he got down from his donkey, which is a chumrius, is all physical, it's moral or tzaddik. They take this Gemara very deep. You get down from the chamor, you're a very superficial person. You're looking at people and how their skin is and how their body image is, whatever. He got down from the donkey and he prostrated himself in front of him. He said to him, look, I spoke too much. Machali, please forgive me. Amalei says, no, I'm not going to forgive you. Go to the craftsman who made me. Amalei, tell him, how disgusting is this vessel that you made? So he was going after him until he reached his city. So the people of the city came out to greet him. They said to him, Rabbi, mighty, peace be unto you, my teacher, my instructor. So the ugly one said to the city members, says, who are you calling Rabbi? Amalai says, you don't know who the Rebbe is? The one that's walking after you. Amalai says, if this is your Rebbe, it should not be many like him in the Jewish people. Amalai said, for what reason? He says, this and this is what he did to me. They said to him, even so, they forgive him, because he's a great person in Torah. He said to them, look, because of you, I'm going to forgive him. And as long as he's not used to or accustomed doing this and his attitude towards other people. So Rabbi Shloimy learned the lesson, and when you learn a lesson, you go and you follow through. And he gave a drasha, and he says, the person should always be soft like a reed, and it should not be hard like a cedar. And he's obviously learning this lesson that he should be humble like a kana, and not be proud and strong like a eretz. And that's why the reed merited to be the quill to write the Sefer Torah, the Tefillin Mezuzah, because it has this characteristic, and that's what is the source of our Torah, of those types of midas, and not arrogance. We continue the halach of the Mishnah that said, when we're talking about things that we're going to be masri and miyad, we said, we said, so to a city that has a plague, or mapailas, or if, let's say, buildings are collapsing, so he said they fast and they scream out in that city. We'll learn the Braisa that mapailas sha'amru, this that they said in the Mishnah, that if buildings are collapsing, are briyas v'loy re'uyas. We're talking about that the buildings were strong buildings, and they weren't shaky. And also, she'ein ru'is lipo, they weren't fit to fall down. V'loy ru'is lipo, and we're not talking about those that are fit to fall down. So the Gemara says, wait a second, that seems redundant. Hainiu briyas, saying that those are their strong buildings, hainiu she'ein ru'is lipo, that's what it means, not fit to fall down. And when you're saying hainiu ru'uyas, when you're saying that they're not shaky, hainiu ru'is lipo, that's the same thing when you're saying that those would be buildings that would be fit to fall down. Why are you saying both? The Gemara says, actually, no, it is necessary. Because this that we learned, that they're not shaky, but still they're fit to fall down, would be, for example, the naflu machmas gavayim, that they fell down because of their great height. So they're not they're not shaky, they're sturdy, but still they're fit to fall down. And inami, or another interpretation, is the kind of like Nahara, where they're by the edge of the river. So although they're sturdy, but it's still fit to fall down because the water would cause it to fall down because it would destroy the foundation and eat away at the ground. So you could have such a thing, and that's what we're trying to say in our Mishnah, that in the Braisa, to say that it's both. It's sturdy and it's not fit to fall down, because you see that it can be sturdy and fall down. You could also have the opposite, like the Gemara says, and which is the other way around, that you could have that it's actually shaky and not fit to fall down. How so? There was actually a shaky wall in Narda. The Rabbi Shloimy never walked beneath that wall. Even though it stood there for 13 years, where that's something that's not fit to fall because it's been in the place so long. Even so, it's shaky. So therefore they didn't go beneath it, and they would go all the way around. But you see that you could have shaky and not fit to fall, or sturdy and still fit to fall. That's why we have to say both, that it's neither one. And if it's the buildings are collapsing, that's a tzara, and you have to discriminate right away. Now the Gemara just continues that one day it happened that Rav Bahava actually came to their town, and normally Shmuel said to Rav, Nesi Mar, let the master come. Nakav, let's go and take our long route that we always go, and take the long way home, because we can't pass by that place where that shaky wall is. So Amalei says, no, let's today we don't have to do that. We have the great Rav Bahava, which today says there must have been two of them, because it seems like that there was one much later. And he says, enough is exclusive, let me stop in. He says, he has great merit, and I'm not afraid anymore. We can go with him in that by that wall. Similarly, Rav Huna, Rav Huna had wine in a shaky house. He wanted to go ahead and clear it out. So what he did was, he schmoozed and learned with Rav Bahava, and he brought him into that apartment. So he spoke with him and learning Adapanya until he got the guys to clear out the boxes of the wine. After they left, Novel base of the house collapsed. So argues Rav Abba chapped. He realized what happened, that he was used in this way, but he was bothered about this. Why did it bother him? He held like this teaching of Rabbi Yanni, that he says that person should never stand in a dangerous place. The Yomei should say, they'll do a miracle for me. I can do a miracle for him. And even if you're going to say they're going to do a miracle for him, so it takes away from his merits, and therefore he was upset that you took him to a dangerous place. And even if it was the merits, but that took away now merits by doing this miracle. And Amar Reb Chanan says, what's the pasuk? The Silik says the famous pasuk, Yaakov said that I've been diminished from all your kindness and all your truth. Although Hashem's been helping him, but he was all afraid that must have diminished all his merits, that what Hashem was doing for him. Now says the Gemara, what was this, the merits of Rav Abba that was so great that he merited to all these miracles, that people weren't afraid to go in dangerous places with him? So the Gemara says, like we learned, like our gear says, like Rav Abba, they asked him, what was it that made that you should live such a long life? So he says, listen up. I never got upset in my house. This is a great midah. Obviously, anyone should try it out at home, which is especially b'tech baisi, right? He never got upset. I also never walked in front of someone that was greater than me. I never thought about learning in filthy alleyways. Now, that's obviously great. I mean, a lot of us don't think about words of Torah in filthy alleyways, but it goes together with the next thing that he said. And they never went Dal Ramas without thinking and learning, where every moment he was learning, that's a kunz, but when you're not supposed to, that you don't. So he didn't think of learning when he was in the filthy alleyways. And he never went without film, I never slept in Beis Medrash. A lot of us also don't sleep, but we're sleeping at home. He was in shul all day learning, and he didn't sleep in the Beis Medrash. Lishin is kavav, lishin is sarai. Not a regular sleep, not a nap. And also another big one, I was never happy with the stumbling of my friend, which is sometimes a person's like, okay, I'm not the only fool, or it's kimtim, He says no, he was never happy with the problems that his friend had. I never called my friend with the nickname that people give him, which, although it's sounds cute, but a nickname it's not respectful for a person when they give a nickname. Again, unless if something that Taisus points out, it's only as a genai. If it's l'shvach, if it's a praise, it's the ilukim, the ilu, whatever, something that's it's a shvach, fine. But if it's disgraceful, which often it is, then that's something that's wrong. Which is a nickname of the family, what's called a surname, which is Taisus brings out, you have Rabbi Ram Ibn Ezra. He says Rabbi Ram Ibn Ezra, the whole family was called Ibn Ezra, and he was Rabbi Ram Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra was the family nickname that they gave, like a surname. He says that he never did that either. He called a person by his name. You say Schwartzberg, I'm an individual. You say he called a person by his name. He says those are the reasons why he merited a long life, and again, that's why he had all this great merit. Now, the Gemara brings that for Rav Huna himself, who he had actually he needed to get his wine out, and he brought Rav Abba because he thought Rav Abba's merit will have it that the building won't collapse. So now the Gemara brings actually Rav Huna's own merits. Amalei Rav Rafam Bar Papa says, let the master tell us, Mehani Mili Mal Yasa, Rav Huna. What were the great actions, the great merits that Rav Huna had done? So Amalei said to him, he says, I don't remember him when he was a young person, but I remember him when he was when he was an older person. And some of the things he did was the Chol Yom De'eva, every cloudy day, which the winds were blowing, and he was afraid that the walls should not collapse. So he would take him around with a golden carriage, which the ministers sit in, and he would check out the whole town. And any wall that was shaky, he would knock down the wall. Now, if it wasn't possible for the owner of that building So Banila, he would build it back himself. Meaning, if it's possible for the master, Banila, so then the owner of the building would build it back. And if it wasn't possible, so he would pay from it on his own, from his own money to build back the wall. Moreover, and every Friday afternoon, have a meshad shlucha l'shuk. He would send an agent to the marketplace. And all the vegetables that was left over from the gardeners, he would buy it, and he would throw it into the river. Now, the reason why he bought it was because if there would be leftovers for the gardeners, and it would go to waste, because it would get wilted over Shabbos, so it comes out that it would cause a stumbling in the future, because they're not going to bring vegetables to the market for people to have food the Shabbos. So I didn't sell. It's not worth it for me to come to the market. So he wanted them to bring so that people could have to buy. So he would buy. You go to the, like with someone going to the bakery and buy it out, and so that the people they should make it, and then they threw it into the river. Says the Gemara, why is he throwing it to the river? Why doesn't he go ahead and give it to the paupers? Says the Gemara, the problem is that at times the paupers will rely on those vegetables and say, we don't have to buy, because Rav Huna goes and we get from the pauper fund, and he's going to give us on Friday afternoon from the vegetables. The problem is, and they're not going to buy, and maybe it's not going to be any leftovers. They're not going to have what to eat on Shabbos. So he didn't want them relying on him, so therefore he threw it away. Says the Gemara, okay, but why didn't I at least throw it to an animal to get some use out of it? Says the Gemara, food that could be eaten by a person, you don't give to animals. Because of biza, it's a disgrace to the food. It looks like as if you're rejecting the goodness that Kadosh Baruch Hu gave to the world. That's why many people, when they throw to the birds or whatever, this net, to the ducks, they'll wait till it gets like this moldy type, not to throw good bread, because it's like a biza for the eichel. Or another interpretation Rashi brings is because the Torah is chassan al maman shel Yisrael. The Torah is concerned about the Jewish people's money. So actually Rashi says when he would throw it to the river would take it to somewhere else. And people would actually, a poor would find it and eat it. So it wouldn't be wasted, but he didn't want to give it to the paupers of his town because they would rely on it. They say, okay, I know it's coming at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it comes the shipment, Erev Shabbos of vegetables from, that organization. And he's like, there might not be, and he doesn't want them to rely on it. He just takes whatever the leftovers are. Says Gemara, so why he shouldn't buy it at all? So the Gemara says, like we already alluded, the nintzis machin lasalavai. That's going to cause a stumbling block in the future, where they're not going to bring the vegetables if they're not selling, and then people are not going to have what to buy. So he would buy and he would throw it into the river. Moreover, whenever Rav Huna would have a certain medicine, when he would get a certain new treatment, have a mali kuza, he would fill up a bucket, the totally besiva the basin, and he would hang it by the entrance of his house. But when he said, called the bayi, lacy belishkal, whoever needs could come and take, which Shaka have someone like that. It says, whatever he needs, as a medicine, he offers it and it's there available. And those who say, Milsa the Shiv to Havagama, that actually he knew the custom of the demons, who would harm someone that would eat without washing his hands. So what he actually did was that he would actually have a bucket of water, the dalile, and would hang it. And he would say, called it tzarech, whoever needs, will come in and wash your hands. The lelistakin, that should not be endangered. Moreover, when he would wrap for bread, when he would wash for a meal, have a pasuk levave v'amar. So he would open up his doors and he would say, Kol man b'tzarech leisa b'leichel. Whoever needs, come and eat. Amar Rabba commented on this all, and he says, Kulu metzina mekaina. All the things he would do, I could do the same. The Bar Maha, except for this one, that he says whoever wants to could come in and eat. Because that I would not be able to do, as he continued about Chafal from an Al. Because there's a lot of poor people in Machaiza, and they would eat up everything, my house and home, and all the principal, and everybody says, everything else I can do, but this is one thing I cannot do. Thank you to anytime for hosting us.